Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Everyone. And welcome back, Bhante and Venerable. I know you from many years ago, but I'm sorry, I don't know your monastic name now. Ho-Jun. It's nice to have somebody in slightly different coloured robes sitting there as well.
Yeah, it's just boring, the same colour robe all the time.
Yes. So this afternoon, to begin with, for a half an hour, we have a question and answer. So Ajahns requested the easy questions first, please. So who would like to come up with the first question?
That's easy.
Oh, this is the roving mic, so
Okay,
I better do a bit of
really
roving.
in the back there. Very good.
Hello, Ajahn Brahm.
Yes.
My question is, how are you?
How are you? Now that's a very, very difficult question. First of all, the you. Now what do you mean by that you? Like, how is my nose? My nose is well ahead. How is my feet? My feet are nice and cozy. What part of you? The whole. So first of all, it reminds me of a lovely little one-frame cartoon we have at our meditation centre, Jhana Grove. And the cartoon, there is, I know it's not one frame, it's like 3 frames. The first one is a very angry man, comes to see the monk. And because, it has to be a cartoon, you just see he has a big sign. I want happiness. And the monk looks at him and said, give me the sign. And straight away he said, your first problem, I. So he rubs it out. What does that leave? Want happiness. The second problem, want. So he scrubs that out. And then the monk holds up the sign. What's left? Happiness. That's the problem. I want happiness. The I and the want is the problem. So how are you? And I'm saying just like this. That's how I am. I'm here. Isn't that good enough? Yeah, well. Good, very good, excellent. It's okay. So how am I? I'm like this. And of course, you can see, you just noticed that I'm expanding. And there's really reasons for that. I mean, one of them is, I don't know, because when I was at university, I studied theoretical physics. And it is well known. Astrophysicists have seen this, and they've confirmed this for such a long time. The universe is expanding. We live in an expanding universe. And so what do you expect? You become one with the universe. So if the universe is expanding, so do I. And of course, if you keep going on like this, sooner or later on, you'll have the Big Bang. There's also the case that, as a monk, you just let things go, you have a happy life, you're peaceful. Even these old problems come up, but you let them go. Because you let them go, you don't worry about anything. And it's the worry which keeps you thin. Doctors tell me this all the time, that Ajahn Brahm, you need to worry some more. And if I worry, then you lose weight. No, you're not really agreeing with me yet, are you? No, okay. But I did tell this little story last night, that it was, half true. Because when I was over in the United States, I was going through the, what's it called? The customs, the Homeland Security check. And they looked at me And they said, what have you got underneath your robe, Ajahn Brahm? And they did ask me, they said, are you wearing a suicide belt? They actually asked me that. And so I told them, I said, no, it's not a suicide belt, it's just fat. And the guy said, same thing. I made up that last one. That's not what he said. Okay, so thank you for opening up. We've got some questions in the box here. Yeah, okay. You've got the box questions. So, okay, you could actually ask them. Yeah, instead of you reading them. Very good. Yes. Oh dear.
This is not my question.
Are you sure?
If you weren't a monk, what would you be?
If I weren't a monk, what would I be? Probably if I weren't a monk, I'd be a nun. Yeah, okay, yeah. Because I like this monastic life. Yeah?
This is a serious one, actually.
I thought the last one was serious. Okay, go on.
How do I fulfill my duty to take care of my father who had sexually abused me?
Ah, okay. Yeah. So first of all, is depends if he has made amends, if he's first of all acknowledged, admitted it. First of all, so to be honest about it. But sometimes you can't force that. So you try and look after him like you look after all other beings. He is your father. Why he did that? It's how do we know? What goes through people's minds? I must admit, it's not sort of denial, but my family that didn't ever see anything which was remotely similar to child abuse, no, not sexual abuse, and it was like an eye-opener for me to be able to hear that parents would do such a thing to their children. Because family was like a loving family. You don't abuse a kid like that. But anyway, if it's someone like your father, if he does sort of admit his mistakes and just say, I really am sincerely sorry, then if that was my father, I would look after him up to the max forgiveness. Because I never see that even the worst of abuses can ever be solved, with hatred. Just what the Buddha kept on saying. Hatred doesn't cease by more hatred. It only ceases by love. And it's the third and fourth verse in the Dhammapada that, this wasn't meaning sexual abuse, but it is saying, he abused me, he cheated me, he beat me. Anger never ceases with someone who harbours those thoughts. So it's wonderful if we can learn to let go and forgive. We can't forget. We never will forget. But, to want to punish somebody, just that creates a lot of pain in our own heart. We've been hurt once. Why should we let them hurt us again? Obviously, to protect yourself and make sure that a person never does that to other people. But there comes a time when to give a person a chance. As I was saying last night, quarantine, a bit more care, a bit more make sure that they are not being put in a position where they could do such things. And make sure that, see if it's possible, so they can, we can give them the chance, the space to grow and to move away from that terrible, terrible thing which they did. But as for you, that's your parents, that if you keep on feeling anger feeling you're worthless, feeling that you've done something wrong there, that abuse continues in your memory. So that's one of the reasons why every time a person remembers with anger or with shame some abuse which you received from somebody else, every time you remember that, you're allowing them to hurt you again. Psychologically. That's why, to put it very simply, someone calls you a pig. Every time you remember that, they're calling you a pig again. And you feel upset. So the most wonderful thing to do is you've been hurt once, you've been cheated once, you've been abused once, or it could be many times, but don't let that experience abuse you every time you think about it. See if you can be free. And you see people who have suffered terrible, terrible things, and they do have a choice. Forgiveness is a choice. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness is taking away the blame. Taking away, I want to hurt somebody back, or that I want to make sure they never have any happiness. Sometimes at the time you think you can't live a happy life, a fulfilling life, but you can. Just when you think, oh, they've destroyed me, they've destroyed my life. No, you can actually grab your life back and live a happy, beautiful life. And, oh, okay. This is one of those groups. I told this story many times, probably last year I was here. It was actually quite moving for me when I was invited to a group called Assets. It was the Australian Society of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. And this was the West Australian branch. I'm sure there's branches in Melbourne somewhere. Because there are people who come to this country, refugees, and they've come from literally the torture chambers of this world. Been beaten, tortured, sexually abused. Not just once, so many times. And when they tell you the stories, it does make your skin crawl, what one human being could do to another. And somehow or other they survive, physically. And they come to a country like Australia, which will take them in and will support them with physically. But they still have the trauma of it. And that trauma just means that their body is free, but their mind is never free. And you can see that it cripples their emotional world. But fortunately, these groups have a lot of success. And what really moved me was to see how one of those stories, which I wrote a long time ago, a very famous story, was one of the key strategies they were using. And that was the old story of opening the door of your heart. And of course, when I get invited to some of these places, sometimes, why? Why are you inviting me here? And they say, because this is one of our key stories we got from you, and we want to say thank you. And they're still using it, apparently. And what it was, that when the person did feel safe enough, they felt they were ready to do this, they would, in a quiet place, where they felt not pushed in their own way, they would do a little visualization, visualizing a little heart in their chest. And it was like a Valentine's Day heart, not a sort of a real heart. If you're a doctor, that sort of heart which is all over the place, a piece coming out here, a piece coming out there with all the arteries and veins and stuff, nothing like that, but just a simple heart, like on a Valentine's Day card. And then they imagine this little double door in the heart. And then next stage, they visualize that door opening up. And there they are, standing inside their own heart, the part of them which they can embrace, the part of them which they feel comfortable with, the part of them which wasn't hurt, abused, demeaned. And then they look out from the warmth of their own heart and down out in the cold, on the concrete, on the floor. There's that little boy, that little girl, or that young woman who was abused, as if that part of them is outside, cold, alone, frightened. And then they imagine the stairway coming out from their heart, going down to the ground. And they invite all those little girls up. Come up. I'm never again going to exclude you, be afraid of you, or be ashamed of you. Come in. And all those young men who are badly beaten, the political activists who were shut away and tortured, all of those little people who are part of you, you invite in. And have this wonderful cathartic moment. These frightened people who are part of you, coming up, the door of my heart's open to you as well. Embracing, coming in. And there's this great sense of change happens. Before, people were ashamed of that part of your life, pushed it away, excluded it, tried to blot it out, tried to get rid of it. And instead, you take it all in, embrace it. And I've seen some of the survivors, and they say it's wonderful that they can never forget what happened to them, but it becomes part of them, it becomes who they are, and they're no longer ashamed of it. They're actually at peace with it. So it's a wonderful thing which can happen, but it has to be in your own time, you can't force it. But as for the person who did that, especially it's the person you trusted so much, and they let you down incredibly. If you can, the best thing is to forgive. If you can. Doesn't mean sort of allowing to continue on. It's forgive and learn. Take appropriate action so you can protect yourself and others afterwards. So it's a very powerful question, because it's amazing just how many people have been abused. It has to be acknowledged, first of all, though. One of the problems with the Royal Commission was finding out how many times people weren't believed. They were, first of all, they felt bad enough that it was kept on thinking it was their fault. They felt so demeaned. And they're not to be believed, not to be heard, which just added worse, made it worse. Anyway, another question, yeah?
Does a person participating in one of your retreats have to take the 8 precepts? If yes, are there any exceptions for a person with a facial skin disease having to use a camouflage cream to refrain from taking the last precept? Thank you. Dash.
Wow. So, no, that last precept is not using things which beautify or adorn you. And some monks are so beautiful, that's why they don't put on any, because they just can't make it any more beautiful. But it's all about sort of, using stuff to make yourself attractive or for good looking. And, that it's hard enough for a monk, but there was one time when I had to wear makeup. It's true. Because I do some very interesting things in my life, but this time I was going to do an interview in the TV studio. And they said, this was years ago, you don't need to make up these days in the TV studio, there's much better lighting. And they said, you have to wear makeup. I said, no, I'm a monk, I'm a man. I said, no choice. And so I said, has anyone else had an exception? The only one who had an exception in that studio. It was Channel 7 or I forget, Channel 7 or Channel 9. And anyway, they said Liam Gallagher of Oasis, he absolutely refused. But apparently he's a bit of a scallywag anyway, so they didn't want to get into a fight with him. But everyone else had to. So I had to go in there. And there was Ajahn Brahm. He was accompanying me that day. And he was looking at me and laughing. Yeah, I know, but afterwards he had to go on TV and get his makeup done. So if you laugh at people like that, it comes back to you. But that's only because of the TV, because otherwise you get all sort of too shiny. So anyway, if that's on on the retreat, of course you can wear the cosmetics if you need to, but it doesn't really matter. If you've got some facial condition, wonderful, just don't hide it. You say, well, should I just, when I teach, come to BS3, should I wear like a girdle to sort of hold my... Of course not. Just let it all hang out. They used to say. No, but further on the retreats, the 8 precepts, that is the basic. It's just simplifying your life. But there's sometimes people have to have, they may be diabetic, they may be on antibiotics, and they need something in the evening. And of course we make exceptions, if they really need something. So we always make exceptions because these are precepts. We will refrain from these. It's not that you'll be prohibited, absolutely, and you'll be put against a wall and shot if you do any of these things. It is a lot of compassion there. So yeah, if you want to go on a retreat and you've got some, you have to wear some ointment or something, fine, no problem at all. Yeah.
Ajahn, back to the previous questions regarding the abuse.
Yeah.
What sort of steps that you would recommend to get them back to their healthy states?
Okay, the abuser.
The victims.
Other victims, yeah. It's actually for the victims is, first of all, to realize you do have a choice to let go. You don't have to keep carrying the pain of the past. And this is one thing which keep on trying to put forward. This is classic Buddhism. You can let go. Unfortunately, sometimes people think that's not possible. Case history of that. There was a lady who came to see me, came to our meditation group over in Perth. This was many years ago, so I don't mind telling the details. That she had a nice little happy family, so she thought, 2 twins, Donna and Damien. And when she came home from work, police were at her home because found out the 2 children, 2 twins, had been, the 11-year-olds, were being sexually abused by her husband. And she couldn't see the signs. And one of the reasons she couldn't see the signs is because, psychologically she was torn. She still loved that man. And the idea that the person she loved, the father of her children, could do such a thing was just so impossible to accept. She was in a psychological denial. The teachers at school could see it. And so because of that, she was doubly felt guilty, not protecting her children, and not seeing the signs. She felt it's almost her fault. And at the same time, this whole marriage was just totally shattered. So he had to be taken away. Eventually went to jail, and that she had compulsory counselling from a psychiatrist. But she also had me as well to take her through this. And because she was English, Caucasian. Because she'd been coming to our Buddhist lessons, was meditating long enough, she could come to a state of forgiveness really quickly. And with that, her 2 children came to that state of forgiveness as well. They were following their mum. And what it meant that she came to see me, halfway through the counselling, saying, Ajahn Brahm, look, can you help? Because I've forgiven. I'm not angry at my ex-husband. Of course, I don't want to see him, and he can't be my husband anymore, but I'm not angry with it. I don't want to punish him anymore. And the psychologist psychologist said, no, you're in denial. You've got to get angry, and I'm not going to let you, go through this until you really get angry at your husband, because that's what I thought you should be doing. And so I had to, write a letter, quite a long letter, to the psychologist, saying that this is the Buddhist way, and this lady has been coming for a while, and she's actually gone past and through that hurt, and she hasn't got anger anymore. No love for her husband, but not anger. Hasn't gone to that extreme. And I convinced the psychiatrist, and I kept in contact with her for many years. She moved over to England, to Essex, and started another life. And her children, especially Donna, she did well at school. And then I think she got married and sent me a picture of their baby. So it wasn't just that they were hiding this, or that she had actually moved on pretty quickly. She had to let go. It was an example of acknowledging, forgiving and learning. It can be done. So knowing you have a choice, it can be done, and there's nothing wrong with not allowing them to hurt you again. That's an important thing. And then once you realize you can do it, then the ways of doing it, the paths, the means, that becomes rather easy. The biggest block is saying, no, I can't forgive this. And thinking that some things are unforgivable. There's nothing which is unforgivable.
Okay,
yeah, go on.
One more.
Serious, yeah.
Do you get tired of being a teacher and a monk, Ajahn?
Do I get tired of being a teacher and a monk? It's good. Being tired of being a monk. What else to do in life? If it makes any sense. No, I don't get negative about being a teacher and being a monk. It would be so easy to. Being a monk is pretty easy. Being a teacher is not so bad. But that sometimes I was, not so much here in Australia, but whenever I go to countries like Singapore or Malaysia, or the worst of all, Indonesia. They're lovely people, but they always like taking photographs and signing books. And it's not just like half an hour. Sometimes that, I think one of the records was, it was, actually, what part? It was only a small town, but there was about such a huge number of people wanting their books signed and wanting their photographs taken with me. And it was a queue that lasted for 2 hours. Signing books, photographs, signing books, photographs, signing books, photographs. And I really wanted to go to the toilet. Signing books, and you can't escape. So in the end, halfway through that, I just thought, what am I doing this for? This was not in the contract when I became a monk. You never thought you'd have to end up doing this. You find out just, being a monk, just meditating, teaching meditation, staying a long time in your monastery and meditating, living simply. And what am I doing this for? And as soon as I started thinking like that, I realized that was suffering. And I went back to something I've taught before here about the monk who went to teach in a prison, and they realized just how tough it is in a Buddhist monastery compared to a jail in Australia. That they told this monk, he said, that's terrible, where you live. You have to sleep on the floor, you can't watch the TV, you can't play sport, you have to eat things in the same bowl. And then he said, why don't you come in here and stay with us? Said the prisoner to the monk. And he had a point. If I was in jail, I'd be able to have 3 or 4 meals a day. I'd be able to watch the TV, be able to play ping pong, be able to relax, be able to read, and wouldn't have all these people asking me questions, wouldn't have to travel anywhere. I just really relaxed. Like, any time I wanted to go on a retreat, personal retreat, all I need to do is to punch a prison officer, 3 months solitary. It's so hard to get 3 months by myself these days. But anyway, then I started thinking, what's the difference between a prison and a monastery? The only difference is, in monastery, like all these monasteries, we haven't got enough space. That's why we continue to build. We're not building just to actually to have nice monuments. You know, in Newbury or Dhamma and Bodhinyana, we built just to get some more huts, so we can have more monks. So all the people who want to become monks and nuns, they can actually do so. At the moment, we tell people, sorry, you can't ordain. You can't come. There's no place. And that's honest. You know, that kind of hurts me. They don't have that opportunity. Really good people. Anyway, we're trying to solve that as best we can. But one of the reasons why is many people trying to get out of jail and many people trying to get into monasteries. And I realised that a jail is not sort of somewhere which is harsh or whatever. A jail is any place you don't want to be. And freedom is any place you're happy to be. So if I was in prison, I'd be actually quite free. But if some people, if I was in a line signing books, I'd put myself in a prison. I didn't want to be there. And I realised, that's the problem, that's the suffering. Signing books, being a teacher, being a monk. Any moment I don't want to be here, I've made myself a prison. And to be free is just wanting to be here. Just, sharing a few moments, having fun. And one of the reasons, I have fun, tell jokes, is because that's where I want to be, in a happy space. I want to take you with me. So that's where I want to be.
There are just 2 very quick questions. How old are you?
How old am I? Okay.
66?
No, come on. You shouldn't sort of... I just had it's June now. 2 months ago, I celebrated my 800th. 800. I was 800. That's a very big milestone. And sometimes people, hey, come on, Ajahn Brahm. I don't lie. I always tell the truth. I'm a monk. It's one of the precepts. Do you actually believe I'm now 802? Months. Why do you have to always follow the way other people do it? They say how old you are, 66 years. That's so boring. Everybody does that. So then you start to say, how old are you in months? So 12 by 66 that's almost coming to 67 soon. And so I worked it out last April was my 800-month birthday. What a shame we didn't come here. Could have a big party. 800. Happy 800th, Ajahn Brahm. That's really cool. So anyway, any of the young people here, anyone who's maybe 11 or 12 years of age or 13, when people ask you, when you try to get into a nightclub, how old are you? Multiply it by 12. No, I shouldn't tell people those.
And there's just one very last short one as well.
No, there's no short questions. There's short questions, but no answers.
Are you famous worldwide and not only Australia?
What?
Are you famous worldwide and not only
Infamous, sometimes. No, sometimes people do recognise you. But that's up to you. What is fame? Who is the most famous person in the world? Probably Donald Trump. And I don't want to go there. I don't know if I told you about the... did anyone hear about the assassination attempt on the president? No. Didn't hear about that? Well, he was giving a meeting the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and this guy, I don't know how he managed to get the gun into the auditorium. He stood up, pulled out the gun, pointed it at Donald Trump, and one of the security guards, saved his life. The security guard shouted out, "Donald, duck!" And the assassin burst out laughing, and he couldn't pull the trigger.
Ajahn, we're sort of time to go ahead with the meditation, or do you want to take one question from online?
What's up to you? We'll do an online question, come on.
We'll do one online question.
So, Dasana from Toronto asks...
Wow, from Toronto.
Yeah, sometimes during meditation, it looks like the light in the room is being turned on, then it looks like someone's walking in front of the light. Before I know it, I open my eyes to see what's happening. I'm not sure why it keeps happening, and how can I continue my meditation without interruption?
Well, just don't open your eyes. You stay there. It's true that sometimes that we get beautiful lights in our mind, and this is part of the nature, so just don't interfere. Don't interfere with the process. Just let go. You're perfectly safe. So like someone's turned the lights on in the room, you keep on going. Just stay there. Just be peaceful, be still, and see what happens next. And you feel something is walking in front of that light, just leave it alone, because it's just, the light is just dimming slightly, and then it comes back up again, because sometimes you're interfering with it, and then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Why do you think they call it enlightenment? No, it's okay. Those sorts of things are in one of those books, I think Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond, about a whole chapter about what we call the nimittas, the beautiful lights in the mind. And of course in some of the recorded talks there's even more answers about all the different things which happen when the body starts to vanish and you start to see this wonderful light called nimittas.
So apologies to the people online, but we need to proceed with our program now. So Ajahn, if we can invite you to
do meditation.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, we've got an hour and a half, so it's an hour and a half meditation?
Whatever you would like to do. We can do more questions if you want, it's up to you. What?
Okay, this is a democracy. So, who wants more questions? Put your hand up. Who wants meditation to start now? Put your hand up. So much for democracy, it's just even. So, we'll do the usual way. I'll decide anyway. So let's have one more question, and then we do a meditation for, is it half an hour, 40 minutes? And then we do some questions after.
Yes.
40 minutes.
The program finishes at 3, so it's open for you.
Okay, so we'll do 2 more questions, then 40 minutes meditation, and then more questions afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dear Ajahn, my mother is terminally ill. Despite our family's efforts, she isn't getting better. I am away for work, but I meditate and try to comfort her pain using that metta. Am I being naive? Danu.
No, of course not, because the mind does have power, and so that you can sort of comfort her pain. But, it's sometimes that we all have to let go one time. So, being terminally ill, and that's what somebody said, that the definition of life. What is the meaning of life? And they said life is a sexually transmitted terminal disease. Think about it. So it is terminal. So a lot of times, and this is, because as Buddhists, you don't believe, about rebirth. So there's no doubt there at all. So sometimes, why are you keeping a person here when it's time for them to go? Sometimes that's one of the other things, we need to change our attitude towards death. That, death is not the end of things, and death is not the most important thing in the world. Trying to keep people alive at all costs. And that is a big problem in our system. Instead, make caring the most important thing. Caring more important than curing. So care for your mum. But time to let her go. Sometimes, you can see that people, fortunately they don't do this anymore. Sometimes they had these old cars, they're belching smoke and just rattling, and now they take them off the road and recycle them. It's the same with me. When I start to belch and start to keep repeating the same old jokes, it's time to take me off the road. No, seriously, this is something where I told the people over in Perth that, there comes a time as a teacher, as a monk, that, it's time to let go of your monk and just, let you retire. Because I saw this with Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, a very inspiring monk, but then I remember seeing him once and, in a conference in Vietnam, and I was sitting next to him, and he gave a talk, and it was, you can see that he wasn't just, the same old Thich Nhat, obviously, that he used to be. And his delivery, the inspiration, just wasn't there anymore. It reminded me of these old boxers who were past it. They kept on trying to actually do a comeback. And it would be much nicer to remember them as they were. So don't just think because your monks are getting very, very old, they must be wiser. So just let them go after a while. Same as your mum, same as anybody else. There's time to sort of let go. And let us fade away. So that's one thing, sir. Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on, yeah.
Renee from Texas asks, Ajahn Brahm, do you feel that a family needs to relocate to join a Sangha? Is online enough? Thank you from Renee from Texas.
Yeah, sometimes you look at in the time of the Buddha, you relocate, in other words, to move. In the time of the Buddha, the men and women, monks and nuns, they would just get one simple teaching. And one simple teaching was all they needed, and they go off and practice it. And once they practiced that, they became fully enlightened. So we just have so much information now. We have so many manuals about how to meditate, so many sort of words and talks and books, but how many people could just take something which really means something to them and use that for the rest of their life? So sometimes I think there's a bit too much information. So inspiration is good, but how much do you need? So for the person, maybe just make a trip to Melbourne or to see somebody who you really feel inspired with. But then just see them once. And then just go back and practice. You don't need to be hanging around all the time. So that was really inspiring when you read in the time of the Buddha just how little people needed. And once they learnt it, they really took it on board and practiced it. So I think one of the biggest problems is our lifestyles. We're just so busy in our lifestyles, doing so much. And sometimes, we don't need to do so much. When I ever go to places like Singapore, you see all these Australians going shopping down Orchard Road. And when the Singaporeans come to visit monastery, they go shopping in Melbourne or in Perth. Same shops, same brands, same stuff. I said, what do you do that for? It got even to the point that one of my so-called disciples, they came to our temple in Perth with this big LCD TV set. This big screen. No, like in the other. Yeah, but just the flat screen. Yeah. And they said, do you need a flat screen for your monastery? I said, of course we don't need that. We don't have TVs in monastery. And he said, it's new? Oh, what did you buy it for? He said, because it was on sale. I just don't get it. They don't need it, but they bought it because it was on sale. And I was telling people in Perth also that very recently, I don't know, whenever they come and offer stuff to the monks, they offer all this toilet paper. We've got heaps and heaps of toilet paper. Way more than anyone could use. And what are you doing that for? Do you think we're full of you know what, you monks? You know what they said? They said, no, because it's on special. So now I get it. I get it now, because whenever we get lots of things in in our monastery, probably here at BSV as well, much more than you can use, which you actually keep pushing in the like all the towels. You keep trying to find a place to store them in the BSV. All these towels, and just why? Because they're on special. So instead of, if you need it, buy it. But no, don't just get it because you don't need it. Why do people work so hard for those things? And houses. How big a house do you need? Just remember, the house you'll spend the most time in is 6 foot long, 2 foot wide, 1.5 foot tall. It's called your coffin. So just save up for that. Everything else is rented. It is, just for the time being. So anyway, that's enough of those sort of stories. Okay, is that the last one from overseas?
That's the last one.
Okay, very good. So okay, now we can do some meditation. For 40 minutes. Oh, okay, if you want to stand up and stretch. Well, thank you for coming today, anyway. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, John. I've been reading Bear Awareness and getting a few outside of that.
You know that sometimes if you write a book or give a talk, something can be so boring, people fall asleep. So joke every now and again. Keeps people alert.
Especially like the one about the mindfulness zookeeper and the tortoises.
The
mindfulness zookeeper with the tortoises.
Oh, yeah. They put that one in there, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Whoosh. Yeah, okay. Very good. So when you're ready, you can sit down. And it doesn't matter if you haven't meditated before, I will lead most of this meditation as I usually do over in Perth. And in other words, give you guidance. Just like when you're learning to drive a car, you have your instructor sitting right next to you, making sure you don't crash the car and kill everybody. So here we go. Very good. So you close your eyes and remember what I said this morning. This is Club Med, East Malvern branch. We're here to relax to the max. Take it easy. So we start with just how we're sitting. So ask your legs, as if they were another person. Ask them, legs, how are you down there? Are you comfortable, legs? Do you need to be moved, adjusted? Because asking a question, you'll get an answer. It directs your awareness to that part of the body. Just like a doctor might say, just how you're feeling today. It makes you look and be aware of how you're feeling. Where does it hurt? The doctor asks. And it points your awareness and makes you describe it. So asking a question, a directed question, is a very helpful way of establishing some mindfulness. So you become aware of your feelings in your legs. How are your legs? And then adjusting them if necessary. Just to assume that when you first sit down your legs are comfortable. No, you can make them more comfortable. This is not just pampering your body. There is an essential training happening at the same time of awareness and some kindness. Aware of your legs and being kind to them. And I continue my awareness and adjusting, relaxing my legs until they feel very comfortable. I always notice, for me it's like a tingle, like a feeling that these things that just like just been massaged, or you've just been in a hot bath and everything is just nice and loose and relaxed. It's a feeling of relaxation. And then, once my legs have been attended to with kindness, then I ask my buttocks, my butt, how are you? Do you need to be adjusted? Because I do see people just fidgeting when they're meditating, and it's just because they haven't really paid attention to an insignificant part of their body they feel, their butt. When you're sitting meditation, that butt has to be comfortable. So you find the best position for it. If you're going to fidget, now's the time to fidget. If you need a cushion underneath, fine, get that cushion. You can push it away, push it towards you, to the left, to the right. It doesn't have to be balanced, but it has to feel good. And once I've attended to my own bottom, then I move up to my back. Now if you're sitting in a chair, it's quite okay to lean back and rest your back against the backrest if you think that's the best. You can move it forward to the left or right. If you're sitting down and you've got what we call the VIP seats in a temple, which is against the wall, you can lean back against the wall if you need to, or you can lean forward. How does your back feel? Often, at this stage, I like to give my back a stretch. And as I can see dogs and so many animals, they love just stretching their bodies. So I stretch my back and then I let it go, let it become loose. Because when you stretch the body, all these endorphins get released. They are pain inhibitors, immune helpers. It feels good. And I keep looking at my body, adjusting it here, adjusting it there. Especially now my back, until my back is pretty comfy. I never always use the same position, because sometimes you may be tired, so sometimes you may have to lean back, lean forward. You find out the optimum position for yourself. And then you notice your position of your hands. If the person next to you is snoring, you can always move your hand mindfully next to them, tap them on the shoulder. But I put my hands usually in my lap. And I just ask my hands, are you comfortable there? You develop awareness. You move it this way, move it that way, until you can find the optimum position. That's called kindness, care. And once my fingers and hands are in the best position, then I can relax them. And move up to my next part of my body, usually the shoulders. The shoulders are often the seat of great tension. So now I imagine my shoulder muscles to be these two bundles of strings on either side of the spine. And then I imagine those muscles being pulled tight at both ends, being stretched. That's what we call stress. And then I imagine just letting go of both ends of those bundle of strings, called my shoulder muscles. Mindfulness allows me to have feedback. The information which mindfulness gives me changes. And I can feel whether those muscles are relaxing or whether they're tightening up. I'm becoming aware and learning how my own body works. And once my body is relaxed, it feels comfortable. So I just relax my own shoulders. Then move up to my neck. People have pains in the neck, even if they're not married. Or they have irritations in their throat. People are coughing. So feel that irritation. Get to know it. And experiment. Find out what makes it worse, what makes it better. A little bit of kindness, letting it be, opening the door of your heart to this, not rejecting anything, just being, not being afraid of what's happening next, just being in this moment, being kind, being with those feelings in your throat rather than being against them. And if your mindfulness is strong enough, you'll be able to notice what makes those irritations worse, or what makes them ease off. What makes them ease off is what we call kindness, letting it be, opening the door of your heart to that feeling. It actually gets less irritating. And lastly, I invite people to become aware of the sensations in your face, especially around the eyes and the mouth, maybe the forehead. Because a person's emotions can be seen in the way that their face is configured, especially around the eyes and the mouth. Aware of those muscles, how tight they are. See if you can loosen them. Just letting it go. Awareness allows you to gather the data, and you soon find how to relax things. So your whole face feels loose, the body relaxed. And once the body is relaxed, now see if you can go to one part of the body, the most irritating part of your body right now. Because sometimes that's deep inside. It could be a wound which hasn't healed yet. It could be indigestion or some other pain inside of you. If you can feel that pain inside of you, that irritation, the most disturbing part of your own body, which you cannot really alleviate through adjusting posture, just zoom in on it. Focus in on it. And once you have as much awareness as possible of the most irritating, painful, diseased part of your body, then see if you can notice what eases the pain or what makes it worse. Usually you will find same ways you relax your body, things like letting it be, kindness, open the door of your heart, can relax the pain inside of you so much. Even if it's a tummy ache, a food poisoning, kidney stone, you can feel that. It relaxes the pain away. Mindfulness gives you that ability to get feedback. You learn about your own body. At the end of my body awareness, I usually try and become aware of the whole body just sitting here. So relaxed, it's like it's been soaked in a hot tub. And it's a delightful feeling when you have a relaxed body. I get to know, I recognize that delightful feeling of bodily relaxation and comfort. And I indulge in it. Indulging in that pleasurable feeling will make you more relaxed. I enjoy the feeling of relaxation at this stage of the meditation. And then I turn to my mind, my emotional world. And I begin by asking myself a simple question. It arouses mindfulness of the right area. I ask myself, how peaceful am I right now? And give it a number from 1 to 10. 1 means really peaceful. 10 means quite agitated. And be honest about it. No one's going to be able to judge you. They won't hear. How peaceful or how agitated are you? All this means is you're becoming aware of what I call the peaceometer. That part of your mind from which you can get the information, what makes you peaceful, what disturbs you. Straight away, you should be able to notice that whenever you drag up the past, that moves the needle of the peaceometer further up to the number 10. It disturbs you. It gives you business to do. Whenever you worry about the future, that also disturbs you. When you just let go of the past and the future, realizing that now is where your future is being made anyway. Now is the only time you'll ever have. You find in this moment, the needle of the peaceometer goes down, become more peaceful. And just like sending your mind out into the future, out into the past, sometimes here in the BSV, there are children outside, the sounds outside. If you send your mind out to those sounds, it's like sending your mind out to the future or the past. You just get disturbed. So you can imagine sitting in a bubble. Imagine you're in a cave. You can hear the sounds of the world outside. You keep your senses inside. All that stuff outside is none your business. None ya. And just focus on your peaceometer. What makes it more peaceful? What makes it agitated? The more peaceful you get, the more delightful it is. Peace is a very wonderful form of happiness. And after a little while, it happens naturally. You become aware of your breathing. Because the breath is always moving. As the body relaxes and the mind lets go of its business, only then can it quite happily and easily be aware of the breath. Just breathing in, breathing out naturally. And as you breathe in, imagine you're breathing in peace, health, freedom, anything positive. Imagine breathing it in with every in-breath. And every time you breathe out, let go. Let go of any sickness, tiredness, negativity. Breathing in peace, and breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace, and breathe out, let go. Breathing in peace, breathing out, let go. Being aware of the breath going in and going out. Not controlling the mind, remembering it's like putting down the cup, not holding it, not driving the vehicle of meditation, but being a passenger, just aware and letting be, breathing in peace, breathing out, let go. Getting close to the end of the meditation now. How do you feel? How relaxed is your body? How peaceful, how content is your mind? And how delightful is it to be rested and at peace. To be free of tension and tightness, not worried about the future or the past, because right now is pleasant. I will now ring the gong 3 times to end the meditation. Please listen to every sound of the gong. And only when the 3rd ringing vanishes, only then to open your eyes. There we go, nice and easy. So, hopefully you... we've got some more complaints from the internet. Questions? No, excellent. They haven't come out of meditation yet.
Maybe some questions. Does anyone have some questions here after the meditation?
Yes, from over there straight away. Just pass it along. Pass the buck, yes. Over to the corner over there.
Hello, Ajahn.
Hello.
I have a question about depression.
Yes.
A daughter of a friend is only 12 years old and has been diagnosed with depression. Have you ever encountered people with depression and dealt with how help them dealing with depression?
Oh, of course, yeah. Many different things. Obviously, to find out if it's a 12-year-old, of course, sometimes it could be being bullied at school. Sometimes it's not being praised enough at home. Because sometimes years ago, instead of actually being driven around in people's cars, sometimes I'd love taking public transport. And because you can get much more information. So I remember coming back from a talk and being in a bus and just being behind 2 teenage kids, about 13 or 14. I always remember their conversation. Obviously, they're best friends. And remember how best friends would talk to one another. And they said, you're too flat-chested, you'll never find a boyfriend. But your nose is too big, you'll never find one anyway. And these were 2 best friends talking to one another on the way home. And it carried on like that for about 20 minutes until they got off at their bus stop. And I remembered that even as a kid, when you go through those years of puberty, people get so critical. The competition between friends is so great. And so they get criticized by their friends, their best friends. And at school, the teacher, you can always do better. You're only second in the class. Come on, you can get top. And at home, the parents always pointing out the kid's fault. Tidy up your room. Just do some more homework. Don't spend so much time on the video games. Don't do this. And if you actually listen very carefully, notice what children hear. What 11-year-old hears? She hears from her teachers, her friends, her parents, she's not good enough. And it's wonderful to understand just where some of that depression comes from. And we need to praise more. For people at school to actually, you're not top of the class. Like I used to say when I was a school teacher, there was one kid. He was, must be about 13, I think. He came bottom of the class in my maths class. No, it's actually the general class score. 30 kids in a class, he came bottom, 30th. I had to give out the report cards. At the end of the year. Do they still do report cards these days? Take home to you? They do, okay. So I had to sort of give out the report cards, and this boy, he came bottom of the class at 30. Now, of course, if that was a special school with every kid was Einstein, of course, one would have to be sort of the worst Einstein in the class. So just because you come bottom doesn't really mean very much. And so I saw him as soon as he got his report and opened it up. You see his face drop, his shoulders hunch. He knew he'd done badly, but didn't think that bad. He got depressed. And you didn't need to read his mind to figure out what he was thinking. What are my friends going to say? Dummy, you're a dummy, you came bottom of the class. What are my parents going to say? They're going to take away so many privileges. You've got to work harder next year. I'm not going to have my kid come bottom of the class. So he needed some support, immediate. And they all knew I was a Buddhist when I was at school, when I was teaching. So I went up to him and said, you come bottom of the class? Yes, sir. And I said, congratulations. They knew I was a bit weird. And I said, I'm very proud of you because in Buddhism, we have something we call the Bodhisattva. And a Bodhisattva is someone who sacrifices their own well-being and happiness for the sake of others. Now, all your friends over there, they've just been thinking about themselves. They've been trying to do well in the exams because they're just so conceited and selfish. Only you think of other people. I know that you're very smart. You have deliberately, on purpose, decided to take this terrible place of bottom of the class so none of your friends will have to suffer the suffering and the pain of what you're going to get tonight from your parents. It's a wonderful sacrifice you've made on purpose. And so as soon as this class is finished, I said, I'm going to go to the principal and I'm going to recommend you for the Bodhisattva of the Year prize in this school. Because you weren't concerned about your own score, you're making sure that other people did well. And he looked at me, I remember his smile, as if, what teacher have I got in this class? It's crazy. But he started laughing. He just broke the smell of depression. And just to top it off, I told him that in this school you're only allowed to get the Bodhisattva prize once. So please let your other friends get the prize next year and don't become the bottom of the class. All it was just so changing this judgment which makes people feel depressed. They're losing out, they're not good enough, there's something wrong with them. So that's one of the first things with depression. Sometimes it can be something physical. So get them out there doing some sport or some games or something. Later on, one of the wonderful ways of overcoming depression, which very few people talk about, is actually doing some social service. Community work. Get them out to come and join the BSV Kids group or the youth group, or just volunteer for whatever is needed in the community. Because actually when you go out and help others, volunteer work, you get so much reward back. You don't look for money, but you feel good about yourself. You're with people, you're helping, you're doing a service, you're making something bigger than yourself. So doing social work is a wonderful way of overcoming depression, getting a little bit past it. There's obviously meditation as well. And sometimes it could be some even easy things, just, pampering yourself, having your favourite food. Because when you get your favourite food, you sort of tend to think, oh yeah, you get a bit of happiness and energy. The deeper ways of overcoming depression, of course, are just not fighting this world so much, not being so angry. Because see the connection between we struggle so hard for acceptance or getting by or doing well, what we think is well. We struggle so hard and we put forth so much energy in our life. After a time we get frustrated. And from frustrating we give up. What's the point? Try so hard and no one appreciates us. I really put my effort in and nobody sort of says thank you. Those sorts of things, they just take away your motivation, which is part of depression. What's the point? So some of that is some ways to overcome, or just some techniques to overcome depression. Of course, there are some depressions which do respond really, really well, especially if they're very acute depressions. That's with some medication. But once you've got past the acute depression, just see if we can get a bit more praise, a bit more encouragement, especially in life. Praise goes a long way. So I always say here that in the BSV, if ever there's something which I say which really impresses you, please say thank you to me. Anything which I say is wrong, or which you want to complain about, go to the management. Pass the buck, but keep the nice stuff.
Does anyone else want to ask a question? Oh,
Go back in.
take over there.
Very good.
Hi, Ajahn. Thank you for the time. I grew up believing, related to the previous question, I grew up believing that if we want to achieve something, we have to push ourselves a bit more of our comfort zone. But up to this point, I'm actually a bit confused. When should I stop then? As a mom, sometimes I'm confused if let's say I don't cook tonight, am I being too selfish, or have I taken all my responsibilities as a mom? What do you think best practical things like, when do you think it's time to stop?
To stop. Now. It's the best time to stop. But no, it's because it's a conflict between your own needs and the needs of others, and especially in a family or in a Buddhist society, in a community. And that is answered by the anecdote. Start with an anecdote, which many of you know, and then just to expand from that, Mahayana and Hinayana, which are the best vehicles. And in a marriage, sometimes one partner is Hinayana and the other one is Mahayana. One is selfish and what they can get out of this, and the other one is always giving. And both are wrong. Both are just not very helpful. So, usually when I do marriage blessings, I have great fun with this, and amazing how many people keep forgetting this. I look at one of the partners, say the bride first of all, look her straight in the eye and say, "You are now a married woman. You're a wife. From this moment on, I want you never to think of yourself." And she nods. It's amazing, just especially when they're married, they listen to anything. at the marriage ceremony. They really pay attention. She nods. And then I look to the husband, especially, I know this is stereotyping, but this is just my experience, okay? Look at the Australian man getting married. They say, from this moment on, you shouldn't think of yourself. You're a married man now. And he always pauses. He hesitates. But usually, after a little while, okay, yeah, okay. And I stood looking at the guy, and I said, now you're a married man, from this moment on, you must never think of her, your wife. Don't think of her anymore. And then, while he's worrying about what I'm trying to get at, I look at the wife and say, same with you, from this moment on, you're a married woman, you must never think of your husband. And it's a wonderful moment when people they're trying to figure out what it's meant. And then sort of I give them it's not the punchline, but the meaning of the riddle. I said, once you're married, you must never think of yourself. That's selfishness. What point of a marriage is that? That's Hinayana. When you're married, you must not think of your partner. That's self-sacrifice. You get burnt out after a while. There's nothing in it for you. So I said in a marriage, the solution is never think of yourself, never think of your partner. You only think of us. Third option, us. You're in it together. You're a team. It's not about me, not about you. It's always about us. So that's the same in a family. In a family, it's not about you sacrificing or you giving all the time, just doing your duties. You're part of the family. It's about each one of us. So when you change that perspective to being about us, not about me, not about them, it changes the whole ball game. You do need some time off as well. You need some downtime, some rest. It's not always about giving. Because if you give too much, you get burnt out. You get sick. You can't help anybody. You count. Not more than other people, not less than other people. You're in it together. Or just the 5 fingers in the hand. If one of these fingers gets sick, if one of these fingers gets infected, I can't use the whole hand. So that's why all the fingers have to look after one another. So the thumb has to look after the little finger. The middle finger has to look after the little finger. Because if one gets hurt, the whole hand gets unusable. Same in the family. So it's learning how to work together. And that means having some rest. And of course, having some rest means being efficient. When I was in Hong Kong recently, same in Sri Lanka, I always make sort of silly jokes, but I was saying that, in the years ago, the British Empire would sort of control India and Sri Lanka and Hong Kong, and now it's in Malaysia. Now it's lost all of those. And what was the reason why? And I think my explanation why the British lost their empire is because they stopped having tea breaks in the morning and the afternoon. Because we were famous for tea. Tea break in the morning, tea break in the afternoon. And as soon as they stopped those, it meant they worked right through, which meant they got stressed out and they made too many mistakes. So even today in Australia, people tell me that they used to have what they call smoko in the morning. Smoking break in the morning, smoking break, but then they stopped smoking because it's bad for your health. But they abandoned the break as well. So if you take a break in the morning and a break in the afternoon, what it means is you relax, you rest, you recharge, and you find you become far more efficient. Your brain can work much better when it doesn't work continuously. Even in AFL, do they just play right the way through 2 hours of football without a break? You can't do that. Even in soccer, it's 90 minutes. They have 10-minute half-time in between. In cricket, they have a lunch break and a tea break. It's very refined. Because you can, but in the office, work right the way through. Lunchtime, yeah, you're eating and still on the computer as you're trying to eat something. No wonder people get stressed, and why we get inefficient, why we make too many mistakes, we get so stressed. The problem is we don't know how to relax. And we think, but we got deadlines, we got to complete the work. Yes, but you find you get far more work done, of higher quality, if you take breaks. You're a far better soccer player if you, half-time, you take a break. At school, you have recess, call it playtime in the morning, playtime in the afternoon, and lunch hour, or half an hour, 45 minutes or something. Why do they do that? Because it's much better for your brain. You can learn better. You can produce more. So one stupid reason, one of the reasons why the British did become very successful is because of their tea breaks. As soon as that stopped, that was the end. That's my social theory of the demise of an empire. Working too hard. Do you reckon I get a PhD on that? Okay. Take a break. Okay. That's only a joke, of course. But there's some truth to it.
We are going to have a tea break at 3 o'clock.
Yay! Okay.
So, dear Ajahn Brahm, I'm 28.
28, that's a month?
You have to use your imagination. No, no, it says I'm 28, I'm afraid of marriage. A lot of my peers have a short-term mindset, and I have seen high divorce rates in the modern world. Why even bother? On the other hand, we talked before, and we both agreed that at this phase of my life, I may not be ready for ordination. Should I just have a house and 5 dogs for the rest of this life?
Wow, that sounds attractive. Yeah, because dogs are actually so easy. I mean, dogs never argue at you. You know, sometimes you come home late and they're just so happy to see you. They just wag their tail. Yeah. And so they never argue. You can feed them whatever. And they will eat it. Even if it's cold food, hot food, and just dogs are so happy. And just they're always happy just to look after you. Imagine getting a husband like that. It's always just happy to see you. Never complains what you feed him. I shouldn't say things like that. We don't want to put it. Well, there's something to say about that. You know, that some of the dogs don't need a cup of coffee in the morning to wake up. They can sleep anywhere, dogs. You know, sometimes, you know, your wife needs a special bed here, a special bed there, and just still can't go to sleep at night. It's amazing, dogs. Just the way they can just cut up anywhere, no worries in the world, and just have a nice rest. That's why one of my disciples in Perth a long time ago, Australian guy, he said, when I die, I want to be reborn as a dog in my next life. He said that to me. I never heard that before, because in Asia, I mean, being reborn as a dog, what do you want to be reborn as a dog for? It's supposed to be a lower form of existence. But he said, Ajahn Brahm, think about it. Come on, use your intelligence. He said, look, a dog doesn't have to go to work on a Monday morning. Dogs don't have to go to school and do homework and do tests and do nap plan or whatever it is. The dogs just sleep around all day. And the only work a dog has to do, you know, is to take you for a walk in the morning. You don't take the dog for a walk, the dog takes you for a walk. And just to wag its tail, lick you sometimes, and the rest of the day it just sleeps in a nice warm corner. sometimes, just sometimes the way we work so hard, it'd be wonderful just to find a nice corner to sleep in. And the dogs, they can eat, they get free healthcare, don't have to worry about a thing. So he said, yeah, in my next life I want to be a dog. So don't have any stress at all. Just relax all day, sleep all day, eat nice food, go for a little walk, and that's it. And that's what I told him. I said, well, this is Australia. In Australia, I don't know how many weeks after the dog is born, they have to go to the vet to get desexed. And that's when he changed his mind. He said, I don't want to be born as a dog. I never thought about that. But anyway, so again, if you do want to get married and have that sort of commitment, it does change it a lot as long as you do it the right way, for the right reasons. So sometimes it's peer pressure sometimes, or rather mother pressure. You've got to get married. When are you going to get married? Come on. But if it happens, fine. But if it doesn't happen, fine, yeah. So this is where we sort of make our choice, what we need to do in life, what we want to do in life. But if it is that marriage, again, just be careful. Because sometimes people I tell this to young men and young women. I told this first of all over in Singapore. And I said, look guys, girls, if you want to get married to someone, just be sensible about it. My first piece of advice for the girls in Singapore, never ever marry a rich boy. A boy from a wealthy family. Because if you marry a husband who's really, really wealthy in Singapore or Malaysia, what happens afterwards is many of them get mistresses. That's just what they do. So, you may be able to, go off to a meditation retreat, sort of in Australia, and you're always worried. It's like my husband seems so happy that I'm going on a retreat. I wonder what's going on. But if you marry a poor guy, he can't afford a mistress. So you're perfectly safe. You can go on a meditation retreat, you can go spend a week with your friends. He's so poor, you've got no worries at all. The no money, no honey thing in Singapore. So true. So first of all, girls marry a poor guy. And guys marry an ugly girl. Never marry a beautiful girl, because if you have a beautiful girl and you marry her, then of course you may go off, to volunteer for the weekend and the BSV. But she's so beautiful, these other guys are looking at her. You'd always be jealous. You never know. But if you marry an ugly girl, she's so grateful that someone's married her, and no one else will be looking at her. And you'll have this wonderful relationship. He's not marrying you because you're hot, marrying you because he loves you. So it's this wonderful thing. It's obvious to me. Guys marry ugly girls. Girls marry poor men. And then you live happily ever after. Doesn't it make sense? So all you girls who still haven't found a partner yet, it's because you just dress up and just go to the beauty parlour, go to the ugly parlour. Go to the Salvation Army or whatever, and Vincent's de Paul's and get the old clothes. And guys, if you want a nice girl, a nice marriage, if you are already rich, you give it to the Newbury Buddhist Monastery building project. And when you're poor, then you can find a happy marriage. Problem solved. No, in other words, just check out, before you commit to someone. And it's not just marrying for, what are you marrying for? I find it's, you really do have a commitment together. Much more than just a lust, but something you have an understanding together, just you want to live a life together. That's why it's wonderful if people meet together, and they meet together, say, if it's in a sort of a place like a Buddhist monastery or Buddhist temple, They've got the same ideas together, the same aspirations, and they want to sort of live together. And honestly, this is true, that not all monks, survivors monks, some disrobe, but all the monks which I've trained, the men I've trained who actually do disrobe, they make these incredible good husbands. The wives actually tell me, said, thank you so much for training my husband before I married him. Because they're so sensitive, they have to work in the kitchen as an anigara because they learn how to cook, and they learn how to clean up after them and wash up and just be sensitive and do chores around the temple. And, after 2 or 3 years of living as a monk in Bodhinyana Monastery, they are just so highly trained, sort of husband material. The people that actually come and tell me, said, whenever one of the monks is thinking of going, please let me know. I shouldn't say that, but it's true, They just have so happy marriages afterwards. Anyway.
I might just make a few announcements.
Okay, go on. Commercial breaks.
Commercial break. So tomorrow, we finish today shortly in about 10 minutes, so just if you've got a question, please think about it. Monday and Tuesday, we've got 2 retreat days with Ajahn Brahm. They'll be starting at 8:30 and we'll finish at 3 o'clock. Now, what we've planned to do this year is for people to bring their own lunch. And the reason for that is that we'd like to try and maintain stillness. The volunteers will then be able to participate more readily as well in the retreat day. So what we're trying to encourage people to do is to maintain stillness, and so therefore silence at lunchtime rather than being a talkative tortoise. So the other thing that I want to also mention is that tomorrow evening at 7:30 at the Box Hill Town Hall, Ajahn will be giving his final talk. I didn't put that well, did I?
No.
Sorry about
Why are you
that.
going to invite me back again next year?
I'm sorry about that. We'll be giving his last talk for 2018 here in Melbourne at Vesak time. And the topic is meditation. Is it simply stress relief? Now, if you go online, we actually have booked all the seats. The seats are all booked. But having said that, please do come along. Come by 7 o'clock. Before 7 o'clock, register your name. What we'll do is, like we did last night, we seat everybody who arrives first with tickets, and then after that, there will be remaining seats, and so please come and register, and then you can take your seat as well. But as you can understand, we can't overbook the number of seats because there's restrictions. But if you'd still like to come along, I'm pretty sure you will be able to get a seat. Okay? So, if there are any questions about that? Okay, so back to questions. If anyone has a question?
There's one right at the very back.
Yeah. So while the things, can I ask a question? I'm going to ask to see how intelligent you are. Why is it you can never see elephants hiding in trees? No, why? Why can you never see elephants hiding in trees? Now, I'll leave that with you and answer this question first of all to give you a chance to figure out the right answer. Yeah, at the back, yeah?
Hi, Ajahn. Just wondering what's the Buddhist view on euthanasia, especially if you've got a chronic issue?
Yeah, no, look, it's not euthanasia, it's not the problem, it's youth all over the world. Youth in Asia. That's where you read it, wasn't it? No, it's for euthanasia. The first person who ever had legal assisted euthanasia was Mr. Dent. He was a Buddhist from Darwin. He's Dent. Yeah, he was a Buddhist from Darwin. And I never saw him, but actually Ajahn Dhamma went to visit him when he did some treatment over in Royal Perth Hospital in Perth. And he told me all about it, what was his reason. And he had a very degenerative disease with no possibility of any cure, could last for years and years and years. And the reason why he took that voluntary euthanasia was to free his wife. His wife was giving him 24/7 care, would sometimes wanted to have respite, but she always felt that she was the one responsible. She had to look after her husband. Even when she had a holiday, she was worrying about him all the time. And he said that he could cope with his illness, but the one thing which he couldn't cope with was the fact that the woman he loved and committed to had no life for herself. And so he did that to free his wife. Now, you may argue with that, you may disagree with that, but to me that's a valid decision. I may not sort of decide that that's the reason to take my own life, but he decided it was. And so for that, you can say that in those cases that one should be allowed to make that choice. With all those, and of course, since that time, I've seen many, many cases. Please, the doctors have been saying for years, palliative care, palliative care. But they said that, but I haven't seen the action done. There's just too many people I've seen really suffering in hospitals. Another Buddhist I saw who told me he was really, really sick, and he said, "Can't you just take me out the back and shoot me out of compassion?" Just suffering so much. And even worse than that, I remember seeing my mother over in a dementia ward. She was fine, so well looked after. But there was a couple of patients with chronic dementia, extreme dementia. Physically, they were so well looked after. But every moment they were waking up, not knowing where they were, who they were, or where they were. And I've experienced just a tiny, tiny taste of that. Because I go traveling, you wake up in the morning, like even this morning, I've been in that room many times at BSV. As soon as you wake up, where am I? And sometimes, until you turn on the light, oh, I'm in the BSV this morning. Until you turn on the light and you get your bearings, then you feel safe. But I can imagine someone who every moment just wakes up, they don't know where they are, who they are, whether they're with friends or with enemies, what's going on. And I saw these two women in the same ward where my mother was before she passed away. They were in total terror every moment of their life because they could not know who they were, where they were, whether it was safe or not. And the only way to overcome that would be to put them under such heavy sedation they wouldn't have a life anyway. So there are extreme cases. And of course every time there is a survey done, it's usually about 80% of people in Australia, they want that option for euthanasia. They're called voluntary assisted euthanasia, where you make your choice. That's against putting someone down. In other words, you making that choice. And that's obviously because you can't stand to tolerate somebody else's suffering. It has to be a personal choice. If you decide that's what you want to do. And in Buddhism, there's nothing wrong with that. That first precept, parnatipata, not killing, that's killing another person. It's not regarded as if you take responsibility for yourself and do it to yourself, if you're in the right frame of mind. But anyway, to put you also out of your misery, the answer to that riddle. Why do you never see elephants hiding in trees? And the answer is because they're so good at hiding. Hiding. Yeah, they can't, because they're so clever at hiding. That's why you never see them up there. Come on, think about it. It's like the US government who brought the state-of-the-art camouflage trucks. They brought these camouflage trucks, so camouflaged that they couldn't find where they parked them. Okay.
Well, I think thank you. I think it's time to thank you for today, Ajahn.
Very good. You're trying to get rid of me.
No,
in case you get
no.
another-
I mean,
Another
I'm very
bad
happy
joke.
to sit here, but I also know that
Okay, yeah, very good, yeah.
you've got for those who you don't know, the teens group are going to be meeting with Ajahn at 4 o'clock to 5, and then he's meeting with the City Zen between 5 to 6, and then he's meeting with the committee between 7 to 8. So there's still a long day ahead of him into the night. But Ajahn, on behalf of everyone here today, we'd like to thank you for coming to Melbourne and celebrating Vesak Day with us, and for the meditation this afternoon. And we look forward to being here tomorrow at 8:30 for the meditation retreat day.
Very good. Okay, very good.
So thank you very much.
Okay, 3 big sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent.
So what we'll do is just allow Ajahn to leave the hall, and Ayasuki, and I'm not sure, Venerable, if you'd...
Will you stay?